Hey, y'all. Today we're going to talk about two things. We're going to follow up on our prior discussions around the sage perspective, right? This is the living powerfully experience with positive intelligence. There's so many ways we can go through this process, but the perspective, adapting and adopting the sage perspective, and then adapting it to any situation is really what living powerfully is about. So if you can believe, and this is the perspective, that every situation can and will be turned into a gift and an opportunity. A gift. And we talked about what do you mean the gift? What type of gifts, right? Last week in prior sessions, we've talked about, the gift of KPIs, the gift of knowledge. You're going to get new information from whatever is happening. K. P, the gift of power, the gift of a new perspective, right? KPI, I could be the gift of just new information, new insights. So if every situation can be turned into a gift and an opportunity, and we're just giving you a sample of the type of gifts, we have to also create a space for you to understand the power that you have to create the gift. So you first believe that every situation can be turned into a gift and an opportunity. And if you're doing the work from the prior weeks, that's why it sounds so simple. But if you're practicing self command and if you're doing the things that we've talked about already, if you're practicing the pause, right? If you understand the value of pausing and you've been doing it throughout the day, when something crazy happens, I like to say we turn shenanigans into sunshine. You're like, okay, not ideal. That is not what I had hoped would happen. But I believe that this too will be turned into a gift. This too will work out for my good. And honestly, you don't even have to know how, but just starting there changes your perspective because you're not saying, oh, woe is me. This is the worst thing that could have ever happened. Because now you're going to materialize that as an outcome. We don't want that, right? We want the opposite. We want the opposite. So again, when I said earlier in this process that every step builds on the other, and it's as simple as deciding, being intentional day by day, celebrating. I got some balloons in the back over here, right? Celebrating every time you do something that moves you in the direction that you know you want to go. Every time you silence a saboteur, every time you see a saboteur. We said awareness is step one. You may not even be able to silence your saboteurs yet. You just may be like, oh my God, I see them all the time now. Yay, celebrate that. I see them because awareness then becomes action. Like you get to change the outcome. You get to change the outcome. So today we're going to talk, and I love to bring in Shirzad. I like to bring in some of the actual visuals where he's talking to us. So Shirzad Shamin is the author of the book Positive Intelligence. It's one of 7 layers of what I call living powerfully, but it's so foundational. It's so, I'm not going to say basic because basic it undersells the power. It is critical. If you do nothing but level 1, if you did nothing but, when I say the living powerfully experience with positive intelligence, that's step 1. Step 1 is being able to do a few things, right? We talk about those 3 muscles, practicing the power of self-command, increasing your sage superpowers, right? It's like it's when you identify your saboteurs and you're able to minimize them, or you're able to shorten the impact that they have on you and others. That's the power of self-command. Amplifying those sage superpowers is huge, 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 huge. And so what we're going to be talking about today is how you amplify those sage superpowers. I'm not going to keep talking about the what. We're going to go deeper into the how today. So welcome Shirzad Shamin, and he's going to talk a little bit about the power of empathize. It's kind of step 1. I love him. Okay.
So let me tell you a little bit about why we are doing the Empathize power so early in this practice and with such fanfare, and we're going to spend an entire week on the sage power of Empathize. The reason is that of all the people that I've worked with, lots of high achievers, the Empathize power is the weakest one, is the weakest link, and in particular, empathy towards yourself. Why? Because Empathize power can be used towards you and towards others. And for most people, empathy towards yourself is the weakest power. Why is that the case? Because we have grown up with lies of the judge, lies of the hyperachiever, and other saboteurs that basically say in order to grow and to improve and to create results, you need to keep beating yourself up for every mistake, every failure, so that you can push yourself, beat yourself, push yourself, threaten yourself, so you keep going and improving yourself. So we have turned brutality against ourselves, and we think that brutality is helpful to us. And of course, it's not helpful to us. It is quite destructive. And the thing that we want to begin to shift your mind and attention to today is about you beginning to, shift from self-brutality to deep self-love, unconditional self-love, to really seeing who you are and falling in love with yourself again. And the most important thing I want you to know about that is that I describe the work that we do not as a work to try to change you. This work is not to change you. Why? What do I mean by that? Change is hard. We don't want to change you. What we want to do is help you remember who you already are. It's very different, helping you remember who you already are, the magnificent, amazing, beautiful sage that you really are, helping you remember that being that you have always been and will always be, versus changing yourself from this thing that's not so good to this thing that's better. That's not what we are doing. We just want to help you remember who you are. And as you remember who you are, you're going to fall in love yourself again. I love myself. After years of hating myself, I love myself, I adore myself. I want you to love and adore yourself. And that's the power of empathy towards yourself.
I love that, guys. For me, this is really about remembering who you are. Check this part out.
So remembering the sage that you already are is it's just, I want to show you that in writing so that you can kind of try to remember. This work is about remembering the sage that you already are, rather than having you change or become somebody new. So with that, what I want to share with you is a story that kind of brings to life this idea of you already are that amazing being. You don't have to change into anything new. And the idea of kind of saboteurs, who are not your true self, versus sage, who is your true self. Your sage is your true self, is your essence being, and your saboteurs are not your true self, they're the false self. And we want to help you remember who you already are, the sage that you are. So this story that really brings this light to life is one that you may have heard me talk about before. It's about the Burmese army. In the year 1767, they invade Thailand, and they're a very brutal army. And as they make their way towards the Thai capital, what they do is anytime they come across a dwelling, what they do is anything that's expensive and precious, they loot that, they take it away, and then whatever is not, they burn to the ground. And whoever resists them, they kill. They're a very brutal army as they go through this devastating work that they do. So they make their way all the way to the Thai capital and to the temple, the Buddhist temple, royal temple there. And as they get to the temple, up until then, a lot of the monks were protecting the temple. They kill every single monk that was protecting the temple. Then they find a lot of treasures and a lot of valuable stuff. They loot that. They take it away with them. Then there are some things that were not worthy, and they kind of leave that behind. And one of the things that they left behind was they came across this giant statue of the Buddha. And since it's made of plaster and pretty cheap and not worthy, and it's a gigantic statue, they just leave it alone. They go about their way. And then what happens? 200 years pass. And on May 25, 1955, workers are trying to move this statue, and as they do, they accidentally damage some of the plaster of the statue. And so as they try to repair the plaster, they realize there is something underneath. And as they try to chip away, what they discover is this pure gold statue of the Buddha underneath. This is 5,000 kilograms of 18 karat gold, 5,000 kilograms of 18 karat gold, 12,000 pounds, for those of you who are not metric, 12,000 pounds of 18 karat gold, the golden statue of the Buddha. So what had happened is that the Buddhist monks, realizing an invasion was coming and there was danger to this Buddha statue, they covered it up with plaster facade so that it would protect the statue from invaders and from threat. So the plaster facade was protecting the golden statue inside. And I want to tell you that that's actually very much what you did. That's exactly who your saboteurs are. That's exactly what you did with your sage and with yourself. You protected your inner core with the plaster facade of saboteurs, so it would protect yourself against threats, against the challenges of life, physical and emotional threats. And as a child, even if you had a very happy childhood, I guarantee you from the eyes of the child, it's pretty, you're vulnerable as a child. And so you need survival strategies, and your survival strategies were whatever saboteur you put in front of yourself to protect yourself. That saboteur became your plaster facade. And here's the really important thing, why I keep saying to you that this work is about remembering yourself. Notice that for 200 years, nobody remembered that there was a golden statue underneath the plaster facade. It was completely forgotten. So the only thing that people saw was the plaster facade. And I want to submit to you that you have been doing something like that too. You have forgotten who you really are. You have started associating with yourself with your plaster facade, with your controller, with your stickler, with your victim, with your pleaser. Whatever saboteur you have has developed your sense of identity. That's who you think you are. But you are somebody much more magnificent than that. We want you to remember who you truly are. As you do that, you'll fall in love with yourself in a way that is going to be profound. And I'm so grateful that we're going to be doing this work together, because that kind of work has changed my life. I have gone from deeply hating myself for a while and depression and all those things to just great, deep self-love. I adore myself, and I want you to adore yourself. So that's the work that we do today. And we used your childhood picture as a way of helping you remember who you really are. So why do we do that? Is because your sage has been present from the moment you were born. It has never changed. It will never change. And early in your life, it's a little easier when you look at a picture, the face of a child, to see the essence. Then as you get older, it becomes more covered up by all sorts of stuff of life. So it's a little harder to see. So we use the childhood picture as a way of remembering. That's all. But otherwise, that essence is in you, unchanging all the time. It's just that it's a little harder to see when you get to be an adult. So we want to use that picture as a way of helping you remember.
Okay, so I'm kind of pausing this part for just a second, only because what I really want you all to understand and to remember, some people have a childhood picture, some people don't. If you do, it is interesting. It is easy for you to pull it in and share it with everyone else. And so we can start empathizing with that cutie, right? That little cutie, right? Wherever you started. I don't have my picture with me at the moment. So I didn't want anyone else to feel like that they had to find a childhood picture. It's something that you can add, and just let me know if when you do, if you lay your hands on your childhood picture, if that's something that brings back empathy. If what you can do, since we talked about the power of visualization, what I prefer to do, whether you have a physical picture or not, can you visualize a childhood moment? Do you see yourself and you were happy? You're delirious. And I'm a gardener today, but some of my happiest memories were in a garden. Like we had sunflowers taller than me. We had little cherry tomatoes, huge bushes that I could just go and pop these delicious cherry tomatoes or strawberries. And we had all kind of cool, things that grew in our backyard, little peas and beans, right? That you could just sugar snap peas. So for me, growing things is one of my happiest childhood memories. And I do remember myself, my little ponytails. I did. I had like little ponies. That's probably my favorite picture of me is my hair and ponytails, right? Um, and honestly, happier than I can remember in a long time. So that's one thing we're going to ask you to do is just kind of take a moment, flashback, remember a childhood picture of yourself, a time when you were truly happy. And when you think about this, empathize, this opportunity to leverage the power of empathize, that is going to be I'll call it our step one, our next step. So I'm going to move through this particular next step because, sorry. So we're going to do a visualization. That's what he's saying now, and I'll bring that in to StreamYard. Okay. So this is what he says. He says, when you're doing this visualization, you want to quiet your critical left brain. You can do PQ reps to activate your right brain, where you're able to tune into a deeper, unchanging
For this
part of
exercise, you need to have your childhood picture ready. It could be digital, it could be print. If you don't have a
time. I'm just going to go back a little bit to the words that were on that screen. Yeah, I kind of want us to see that again. If you've had a bad childhood, and I do have individuals who I've coached individually who said, in leaders that I've coached individually, and they said, I don't have any good memories of my childhood. I don't even want to think about it. I move forward. All good. If you cannot do this, it is not a problem. It's so much so where find a happy memory of yourself, period. So that when you think about empathizing with self, that is something that you can do with ease. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. Let me just take that out. So hopefully that makes sense. Again, we all have the opportunity to do this visualization, but I honestly want to make sure that what you're sorry. That's his voice. That was his voice. I'm gonna pause this again. So what I love most about this work, this concept of remembering who you are, doing a childhood visualization. Again, it's nothing that you have to do that is going to take you to a bad place. That's all I wanted to kind of share. The empathize superpower is really about pausing and remembering. When someone think about how your saboteurs have shown up potentially, how they've been created over time. When someone does something bad to you, Shirzad actually likes to remind us to also see them as a child. Like, what might they have had to go through that have turned them into this maybe not so nice person? Do you understand that? Like, how cool that is? So the power of empathy isn't just for you to empathize with yourself. And sometimes the childhood visualizations work. Sometimes, again, more people than not, honestly, that I've connected with, they can bring a picture in, and some people don't have a picture, and some people have. So I like to just create this as an optional visualization. The concept of you empathizing with yourself can be at any age, but also empathizing with others. Have you ever had someone do something to you that you thought was less than nice? And you're like, wow. When you lead with love and lead with that, I see him as a child as well. What might they have had to go through? Shirzad, when he tells his story and talks about his dad and other people in his life that have abused him emotionally, that caused him to be in his shell as a young child. There's something powerful that starts when you decide, what, I want to choose differently for them, right? I want to do something different. I want to create a different outcome. And that to me is truly powerful when we're in a position to truly focus on not only this concept of the sage perspective, but really going deep and really thinking about the sage superpower or these sage superpowers, this concept of truly empathizing in a way that perhaps you haven't in the past. So I have something a little special I wanted to share today. It is, each of you have these saboteurs, and I have detail about each of them as far as what you could do differently, how you might show up differently. But what we also have is this concept of you deciding different, deciding to do different so that you can be different. So this concept of creating the gift, I really want you to reflect on how that's happened to you over time. So if we can bring in this focus on time, if you haven't already done this, if you haven't already created a space for yourself where you realize in this moment when something bad happens, I can't think of anything positive, just so I'm clear. You could say that, yeah, no, I don't have anything. I don't have anything new that I want to share at this moment as it relates to this group doing something different. But if you can think back to a time when you did see something later and you were like, oh, and you were like, oh, I see now. Now I see how that thing is really a gift. Now I see how that thing, how that opportunity for us, how that shows up differently for me. If I had thought about it, then I would have in the moment gone through it differently. Like I might, could have saved myself some suffering, right? If I had just, right, did this thing, thought about this differently, if I had just put forward this sage perspective and reminded myself that every situation can be turned into a gift and an opportunity. And if I then went after it, like I decided I was going to create the gift, I was going to be the gift. I was like, I don't know what it is, but let me see the gift of knowledge. What can I learn from this? The gift of power. What new powers do I have because I went through this thing? What new information or insights? Like you get to decide, and then you get to leverage this power of empathize. And again, there's more that we can say about it, but for us in this particular moment, as we go into break into a quick pause, what I'm going to ask you all to do is literally just think about at least 1, 2, 3 times where something has happened in your life, and then over time you were able to see, yeah, that bad thing, if that hadn't happened, then this thing wouldn't have happened, and then this other thing, right? Like things happen, or like I'm a better person for it. Hey, I got laid off of this job, and then all of a sudden I found this other amazing job, right? Or this person maybe broke up with you. Oh, someone broke up with me, and then I met the love of my life, and we've been married for 30 years. Like that, those kind of stories happen all the time. No matter what happens in my life, I am already saying, "Ooh, what is the gift? I can't wait to see the gift." Even if when bad things happen, if you say that and you're like looking for the gift, it's Our reticular activator, which is part of your brain that actually allows you to screen things out. You will screen out bad things. You literally will show up in a way that says, oh my God, this is so exciting, right? So you create the positive because that's you screening out the bad things and you're only looking for the good things. That's really how I show up. So I'm going to ask each of you to do the same. That's it for now. I know this sounds super easy, but from an activation perspective, we need for you to continue the things that we talked about before. So much is happening in our lives. So much is happening in the world. We just have to decide, okay, this thing happened at work, at home, right? And I'm going to choose to visualize a different outcome. When I when I was younger, actually, I think I still do it now. But if I ever have a nightmare and I wake up and it's spooky, scary, or I'm feeling anxiety or anything happening, I'm like, oh, no, sorry, I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. I will redream the dream. I'll just not go into the bad part. But wherever it left off, that must have been an intermission because that is not how my story ends, right? So you get to redream a dream. You get to relive. You get to visualize different outcomes. The next time that happens, this is what I'm going to do. So say you had something that happened and you some little thing turned into a big argument and you're like, ugh, you know what? That's really not how I love this person. That's not how the relationship I want to build with them. The next time anything like that happens and my saboteurs are activated, I'm going to pause. I'm going to breathe. I'm going to practice self-command. I'm actually going to do some things differently. So that's why this is a super short video today, because I just want you all to decide, I'm going to go do something different. So spend the time visualizing outcomes that align with what you want to see at work, what you want to see at home, what do you want to see from you. So that's it today. Again, I could give you more, but we'll talk more when we get in person. We'll talk more another time. This is for you all to just pause and spend some time with your own visualization, the power of empathy. And then you're going to empathize with yourself when bad things happen. It's okay to say this bad thing happened. And I wish it wouldn't have. And I'm grateful that I'm still alive, right? That's empathizing with yourself. This situation is messed up. Empathizing with the situation. This person attacked me. They did something horrible to me. Empathizing with that person as well. Like you get to decide how and when those elements show up, but that's the 3 layers of empathize. So being able to empathize with yourself, cut yourself some grace, some slack, empathizing with the situation, empathizing with others. Those are typically the 3 things and 3 ways that the empathize power shows up. Shows up with you deciding as a young child, you know how we want to love up on our younger selves. So when Shirzad talked about us loving ourselves, that's kind of rediscovering the golden child within, right? It's true. You get to rediscover the best of yourself. So more to come. Bye, y'all.